Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Into the podcast. Now tuned in for this episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
Listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, on the air since 1981.
Welcome back to the program, Mom. Zev Brenner. You know, there are lots of good Jewish organizations in the United States, but in Israel, there's one group, One Israel Fund, that's been around for 30 years. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary. That's helping the Jewish communities, Judea, Samaria, Jordan Valley. They're doing amazing work for security-wise, protecting them and making sure that their needs are well taken care of. Scott Feltman joins us, Executive Vice President of the One Israel Fund. He's been there 17 years in his official capacity, but he's been in the group even longer. So welcome back.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You do amazing work, and you really, the people need protection to live in Judea and Samaria, in those areas especially. So tell us about some of the day-to-day work that the organization has done over 30 years.
So we focus on 5 different areas, and as you said, we do it in Judea, Samaria, in the Jordan Valley, and when we started, we also included those communities in Gush Katif.
I was going to say, Gaza, right?
Yeah, those beautiful communities that we lost. And then after the disengagement back in 2005, the organization also pivoted a little bit to helping the communities that were left in its wake along the southern border. And now, during the war, also up on the northern border, we were called up to assist. And we basically focus on filling gaps in the areas of, you mentioned preventive security, but also in medical and healthcare, education, recreation, and communal development. So at any one time, I am basically working on funding sometimes upwards of 200 projects. They can range from small projects of, creating a garden or an organic farm to providing scholarships for schools, special needs programs, at-risk youth programs, computer training skills programs. We're building a hospital in Binyamin.
Which my good friend, he's spearheading. He's very active with that.
What did you? I missed that.
Dr. Paul Bromansky.
Yeah, he's involved with it also. That's correct.
All right. Listen to Paul. He's a wonderful individual. Very dedicated to you, by the way.
Yes, we actually have a very big announcement coming up at the dinner that you mentioned regarding the medical center. Look, our bulk of the work is certainly in the areas of security. These are these are not the easiest places to live, and we need to make sure that they have the protection they need. We work in tandem with the security apparatus that exists in those areas, and we seek to fill gaps. So when I started during the Intifada years, my first project that was handed to me was a children's bulletproof vest campaign to provide vests for children when they had to go out into cars on the road. We did vans to transport special needs children to school. Again, those were the days when, there were drive-by shootings and bus bombings and everything else that was going on. And we haven't stopped since. We do a lot of surveillance camera systems, perimeter lighting systems, thermal drones. We were the first organization to identify the advantage of having a thermal drone in being able to detect potential terrorist threats, arson threats, things like that. Everything we do is preventive, and it's for the civilian security teams. We're not involved with the Army. We focus on what the civilian teams need. Each community has what's called a rapid response team, a kita kananut, and they have various equipment that they need, patrol vehicles and the like. But I'm also building mikvahs, and I'm building synagogues, and I'm building libraries, and pinot chamot for soldier hospitality centers and communities. Just since October 7th, I think we filled almost 500 different projects. Wow. In almost every community throughout Judea and Samaria. We're very proud of the work we did. We do it on a shoestring budget. We're consistently ranked 4 stars with Charity Navigator. And I do it because we all believe in the cause and we all love working here.
It's such important work, and I should let everybody know that the Israeli army only can do so much, so they rely on people and organizations such as One Israel Fund to fill in the gaps and provide the security and to work in tandem. And that's why, it's so important. And perhaps you can just have an idea. I know everybody's been focused on Gaza and Lebanon, but what's the security situation been in Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley since October 7th? It's also been a heightened stance of security needs.
Very much so. In fact, in the very early days of the Iron Swords War, everybody thought, and all signs were leading towards that area being a tinderbox and could explode at any moment. Every one of these communities is surrounded by Arab villages. Many of the communities have relationships with their Arab neighbors, but there's an element there that is quite dangerous, and we're constantly fighting off terror. One of the things that we learned over the year is that, first of all, you have to realize, you mentioned, the Army can't fulfill every need. It's more than just equipment. The Army can't be everywhere at every moment, which is why we have the creation of these Kitot Konanut, the rapid response teams, because they are the first responders to any kind of a situation that takes place within the boundaries of a community, of a yeshuv. So they are they are trained. We're involved in that training. We train them also on the equipment that we give out. The drones that we give out comes with a training course, so they can learn how to use it in all types of inclement weather, that they can control the drone and understand how to use it to effectively with its thermal capabilities. And we saw in the early days of the war that because of the nature of the communities in Judea and Samaria, and because they are strong, and because they are equipped and they're well trained, that served in a large part as a deterrent to a situation like happened down in the Gaza border from happening in Judea and Samaria. It's a different type of a scenario. The communities down along the Gaza border, many of them, and this is not, I'm not saying this in a positive or negative sense, but many of them tended to be very, very left-wing socialist communities. Some of them were from before the state of Israel was even formed, and they worked very hard on reaching out and developing relationships with their Arab neighbors, even in Gaza itself. And it was an interesting metamorphosis that after October 7th, many of them started to rethink the efforts that they had put in to those relationships when they found out that this is what was going on during the entire time. In fact,
it's a fact, Scott, that people who worked in their homes
exactly
information to Hamas to attack them.
Exactly. So we don't have that situation in Judea and Samaria. First of all, after October 7th, every Arab worker was pretty much kicked out of the communities. But in large part, those communities are very, very strong. They're well trained, they're well equipped, and it's a different situation. And I'm happy to say that for 30 years, we have worked hand in hand in bringing about that reality. So I'm not sitting here, I'm not telling you that I'm the Army. I'm not. The Army is strong. And I'm not saying that it's because of One Israel Fund that, terror didn't explode like it did down south in Judea and Samaria. But I am confident, and I can tell you this with no shadow of a doubt, we have played a major role in the protection of the communities in Judea and Samaria. And my security team, and you know some of them, Mark Professor and his son Yochai Professor,
sure,
are Mark
Excellent.
is one of the foremost counterterror experts that exists in Judea and Samaria. He doesn't go into a community and listen to them talk about what they need. He goes into a community, looks at the situation, does a threat assessment, and tells them what they need. And oftentimes, he's able to tell them that what they thought they needed to protect themselves and to equip their teams wasn't exactly what they needed. And we've saved money, and we've made it more efficient. And we take a very, very proactive role. Our motto here for the 20, 30 years that we've been around, and certainly the 17 years that I've been running the organization, has been no more Jewish victims. And we live with that. We want to make sure to be proactive and do whatever we can to prevent terror. One of the projects that we're right now bringing online, because you were talking about the Army, is an AI monitored camera system in one of the communities. And it's a pilot project. The Army is actually waiting to see its success to figure out if it's going to invest in implementing it in other areas. And oftentimes we, One Israel Fund, are the guinea pigs. that put in the money for a specific project, demonstrate its effectiveness, and then either the Army or the Ministry of Defense or other areas, if it's another department, will assess its effectiveness and make a determination as to whether or not they want to put more money into it. So in 2016, we created a project for armored vests for the Ravshatzim, the security civilian chiefs, because they were wearing combat vests, and their job is to drive around in cars and vehicles and to constantly get in and out. And you can't sit with one of those vests. It's not designed for that. So Mark, being a former Ravshatz, a former security chief in the Shiloh block, redesigned the vest. We supplied 300 or 350 vests to the Ravshatzim. The Army saw its value, and they kicked in 4,500 additional vests for the teams. So in many areas, we punch far above our weight. And that's just our projects. We didn't even talk about the fact that somebody like Eve Harrow is out there with our day trips and educating people, even during COVID, online with virtual tours, with webinars. We now have a new women's division. We're about to kick off a renewal of our young leadership division. We started a congressional caucus down in Washington, where I've made a number of trips down to Capitol Hill, and we brought a delegation this past summer, where we're not lobbying. That's not the point. We're more educating some of the members on the Hill of the importance of the communities in Judea and Samaria. And it's kind of fortuitous because you and I both know that with the incoming administration, that's going to be a very big focal point going forward in the next 4 years.
Our guest is Scott Feltman. He is Executive Vice President of One Israel Fund, doing amazing work, Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. He's been there 17 years. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the technology that you've used, let's say the vest, the Army can use it for themselves, right?
Yeah, they're really designed more for the civilian work that is done, and it's a different role than a combat soldier.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's cut a little bit above the waist. Combat soldiers are usually a little bit more protective, actually. It's also much lighter, so that if you're working in a civilian role, you may have to climb a light pole to change a fixture or something in the middle of the night, you need to be able to maneuver around. You need to be able to move, and you're constantly getting in and out of vehicles. And so it's a different type of a vest. It was designed specifically for them.
But it could be, let's say, for emergency responders like MDA, Magen David, or so it has beyond just Judea and Samaria. It could be used in Israel proper.
100%. We actually did an armored vest campaign for medics, because oftentimes they have to go into the line of fire. So instead of giving them out to the actual medics, we put 2 armored vests on each ambulance in Judea and Samaria. So whoever's actually in the vehicle on a specific day has proper protection if they have to actually leave the ambulance and go into the line of fire.
Wow, amazing. Now, who funds you? When does it fund you? This costs money, security, inflation.
You do.
Yeah, I know we can do, but it's strictly up to like the Americans and the chutzniks that doing it.
We do not get public funding. We also do not get funding from, for the most part, from many of the major Jewish philanthropic organizations. You know, and I know, Judea and Samaria, it has a stigma to it. For whatever reason. We believe we know it's the biblical heartland. It's where 75% of the Bible took place. We know it's a strategic area. We know it's the cradle of Jewish civilization. That's where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob resided. But for whatever reason, it's a political football, and the major Jewish philanthropic organizations will not participate with us. So we're left to basically raise money from the wonderful individuals that exist throughout this country on an individual basis. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but a lot more rewarding, because I get to see and meet the faces that support us, and support us they do.
Because what you do is a gala fundraising dinner, which is really fun, because it's a serious organization, but the dinner has some very prominent people, and people have a great time. I've been to your events, and it's really fun, but it's also educational, and also serves a good fundraiser. Tell us about your upcoming dinner. You have a lot of interesting honorees, including a good friend, Sid Rosenberg, his wife, Danielle.
Yeah. So Sid and I have become close friends over the past year. He had never been to Israel. And in January, a mutual friend of ours, Judah Honickman, basically called him up one day and said, Sid, it's not enough to be talking about it on the air. You kind of come. And he basically said, okay, how do I do this? And through a lot of fortune, Judah reached out to me, and I helped. I was one of the participants in helping to sponsor his trip. And since then, we've become fast friends with his whole family, his daughter, who's doing amazing work on campus in London, and his son here, and his wife. So we're very excited. The truth of the matter is we haven't had an in-person dinner since 2018. Yeah, we were supposed to have our...
It's in the summertime when you have a lot of,
we have summer community events
right.
in many different communities around here. But as far as our gala dinner, we were supposed to have our 25th. It got canceled because of COVID. It went online. The following year, we were about to do it in person, and then there was another spike or something, if I remember correctly. So that was also a virtual. And then we didn't do it. We didn't do it in 2022. And then the war started in 2023, and we haven't had an in-person dinner in 6 years. So we're all really excited, and we wanted to go big or go home. So as you know,
how many guests that are being honored? You have a great roster.
We put together as much of an all-star lineup as any organization has ever compiled in one room at one night. In addition to wonderful honorees, we have the Nanasi family, parents and children from Englewood, and the Sharfs from Lawrence, Marty, and Melody. Carol Greenwald, who's getting our first ever inaugural women's division, Women of Valor. She splits her time between Maryland and Florida. We have Sid and Danielle, who you mentioned. Very, very meaningful and important to me is that we created this year a Founders Award in honor of our founder, Dr. Yechiel Leiter. Some of your listeners may recognize the name. Aside from being our founder and visionary who created One Israel Fund 30 years ago, he was just nominated and confirmed as the new Israeli ambassador to the United States by Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Very nice.
Starting his term sometime, I believe, in January. Unfortunately, in the early days of the war, his oldest son fell in battle in last November in Gaza. So we're giving the first ever Founders Award posthumously in memory of Moshe Yedidia Leiter, MD. He was in the Army for 15 years, and then after graduating, with 6 kids and a wife, he decided to go to medical school. And he was supposed to, this past June, be part of the first graduating class of Ariel University's new School of Medicine. And they gave him his doctorate posthumously as well.
Oh, wow.
And we're honoring his memory in the first Founders Award that's basically in honor of his father. And every year there will be a monetary gift made to a new mechina, a pre-military academy that is going to be built in memory of Moshe Yedidia down in the Otef on the Gaza border. His father is spearheading that, Yechiel, and we are going to make a monetary contribution every year in honor of the awardee for the Founders Award. And then we have 2 Israeli women that we're honoring, Hadassah Goldberg, who some of your listeners may know as the real Hadassah on social media, and Hadass Gozlan, who I think has 3 followers on Instagram. She is one tough woman. She is the head of security for the entire Jordan Valley. She is a mother, a wife, and the toughest person you ever want to meet, and the sweetest and most beautiful woman. I apologize to my wife about that. So those are honorees, and that's not even the program. The VIP reception for those people who want to join at a premium level will get to interact and mingle with Mossab Hassan Youssef, better known as the son of Hamas, who is going to be in a fireside chat with Nathaniel Buzalik, who people might know as Nate Buzz. He's an actor in Hollywood from the originals and the Vampire Diaries, 2 shows I didn't even know about until about a month ago, but I had to learn up. Michael Rappaport, who's a well-known comedian, Israel activist, and actor as well, is our MC. He actually joined us one of the days with Sid in Israel. So we got to take Michael around to Shiloh and the entire Binyamin area. Did I get everybody? And Noam Buskila, who's an Israeli musician, and Aryeh Kunstler will be performing a concert at the end of the night, and gracing us throughout the program as well.
Right. So what the date is it all taking place? It's going to take place in Manhattan.
December 19th in New York City. I think your listeners will understand we're not giving out the location without a reservation for security purposes, but they can register online at oneisraelfund.org/focus. That's ONE Israel ISRAELFUND.org/focus. And we want everybody to focus on all the good work that One Israel Fund's been doing and the opportunity that now rests upon us to do big things in the very near future.
Security, because you have not only security from the place, but you have security from Israel, and the different people have brought their own security, so it'll be a very secure night.
We're planning for everything and anything, and then some. So between the private security that each of our guests bring, and our own security, and the wonderful work of the NYPD, and the venue, we're doing everything we can to make sure it's secure.
No, it's an important event, so everybody who can, please attend. Looking forward to it. It's a really wonderful organization, and especially I'm excited about what he alluded to is the hospital that's going to be coming in there, which with a lot of work. Dr. Paul Romansky has put a lot of work and effort into it, and thank God it's coming closer to fruition. There'll be an announcement at the dinner itself, so we're looking forward to hearing that. I want to thank you, Scott Feltman. It's not easy. There's a lot of work. It's not, and running a Jewish group, and running a group that Judea and Samaria is lots of challenges. So hats off to you for pulling it off and putting together really a magnificent gala event coming up.
Thank you, Zev. We can't do it without friends and people like you, and all of our friends around the country. And it's a labor of love. You know, we work hard, but we enjoy every moment of it.
And does good work because it secures lives. And by the way, even after the war, I was shocked to see that Israel is considered one of the happiest places on earth, even after October 7th.
Amazing. What does it say about us people? We're crazy.
We know something that everybody else doesn't know. It's in the water. But anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So Scott, thank you for joining, and continued success.
Thank you so much, Zev. Have a great night.
Scott Feltman, Executive Vice President of the One Israel Fund.
Thank you for tuning to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Good job.
I almost slipped up there.
I saw it, but nobody would catch it. But